that many times in the paddock, where the season is around longer, but within the mechanics contract, they're still getting paid the same money. Now, that's wrong and shouldn't be, but it has happened. And funny enough, the first person I heard that from was from a Yamaha person when it got increased in length, and they weren't paid more money for their extra. Needless to say that some of those boys aren't in the paddock anymore.
Well, and then it does come back to the management side of things. You know, the sport will inevitably grow. They want to be in more countries. They want to be more present in areas where it is politically and financially beneficial for them. And if that means more races, then that means more races. And it's then got to be managed by the people in charge so that the personnel can do that, isn't it? The only times I've ever seen complaints, really, it's been on social media, and dare I say it's perhaps escalated because it's on social media. I wonder how actually big of an issue it is for people actually there in the paddock, even as you say, Keith, if it's even a talking point at all. I think it might be very much people looking in and going, oh, you know, you shouldn't complain about, you know, being tired or whatever. Why, you know, the driver crashed the car and the mechanic's got to do an overnight or whatever it is. Sorry, that's the F1 talking there. But it's certainly the F1 side of things that I've seen where the complaints have come more from. But yeah, let us know what you think as well. It'd be really fascinating to get those things in. I think we could talk about that one for quite a while. But we're going to move on to a bit of Moto2 and Moto3 chat because we've had a question come in from Crumbly Mal. Excellent name. Guys, got to ask the question, how are Scott Ogden and Josh Whatley getting on in Moto3? And is John McPhee going to be back in Portimao?
Scott Ogden's been a revelation for me. I think he's been very good. I think it's in the deep end for both Josh and Scott, but I think Scott Ogden is punching well above his weight. I think it's great. Brand spanking new team. You know, everything is brand spanking new, right the way from top to bottom regarding that team. And I think Scott's done a great job. Josh has got a little bit of catching up to do, but you know, he's been professional and working hard at it. I think great little team, doing good. John McPhee, he's on the entry list. I looked at the entry list this morning that came into my office. McPhee is not replaced. He's on the entry list. So back injury. Now, there's something I can absolutely personally talk about, back injuries, because I've had it with, you know, squash vertebrae and bits of squidgy bits sticking out the side of the bony bits and so on and so forth. And it's something you just cannot get over quickly. You know, it's a situation where whatever you move, your head, your arms, your feet, your toes, it seems to be all connected through your back one way or another. And riding a motorbike, even a Moto3, is going to be a tough ask if he's still got back issues. You've got to wait for it to stabilise, which I'm sure he has. Wait for it to settle down. He's a muscly little sod, so he'll be fine. It will hold together quite neat and tidy. But you don't want to risk any further injury too quickly on something like that. Portimao, what a racetrack to be coming back at. Fantastic racetrack, but so many opportunities to fire yourself to the moon out of some of those corners.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Scott Ogden, I think, has done really well. I think it reminds me, we were talking about Bezecchi and Darren Binder as having also done something special in a few practice sessions where it just catches your eye, doesn't it? And you think, hello, you know, there's something there. And I think Scott Ogden's been a bit like that in Moto3, isn't he? He scored points already. These first races, the overseas ones, are always a bit tougher, aren't they? Now we're going into Europe, tracks that they'll be a bit more familiar with. And I think, you know, this is where they can really get comfortable with the team, with the bike, with the championship. But I think it's been an impressive start.
And then if we look at Moto2 as well, there was a lot of chat coming in about Jake Dixon, who, of course, got his first Grand Prix podium last time out in Kota. Do you think that's going to be a bit of a springboard for him, Keith? Do you think that's going to unleash a whole wave of Jake Dixon results?
I do. I really genuinely do. I mean, it should have happened in Le Mans, shouldn't it, a couple of years ago when he looked like he got the thing won, but chucked it away. I mean, he'll be mortified by even me mentioning that again. But the fact is, Jake is a superb rider. He was great on a superbike. And he moved across into the arena that is a real shark pit. Looked like he wouldn't have a deal that lasted longer than a year at one point. Thankfully, they kept him on. It would have been cruel to have dumped him out of the Grand Prix scene and back into wherever he would have ended up back into. But I think now he's established as a top-line Moto2 racer. And I can see him from here having a little nibble at those MotoGP rides as well. You know, he's a big bike rider, Jake. And I think that if he can get consistently few more podiums this year, people are going to start looking at Jake Dixon again very, very seriously. He's got great personality, great presence in the paddock. He's good in a team. He comes from a background of proper race people. He's married into racing people as well. Sarah is obviously from that background too. The whole job for Jake Dixon, I just feel that podium now, he's always believed in himself. Little bit of a wobble, I think, back when he banged his head and all the rest of it, and Bastianini took over for him for a while. And then when he came back from that, he was stronger. I think he's made a step, and I think he'll make another one yet.
I think you mentioned it perfectly, Keith. All those setbacks that he's had, isn't he? And you just thought, is he going to do it? Well, now he's got there. He's got the podium. He's got that under his belt, and he's, as you say, he's been consistently fast, hasn't he? Almost every race weekend we've seen so far, these 4, he's been up there. He's been showing what he can do. So yeah, I think he's looking really strong this year. He seems to really gel with that Aspar team as well, isn't he? He seems that he's really comfortable there, which is so important for a rider, isn't it? That they feel like they're part of that team. They're happy. They're relaxed. Whenever the camera shows him in the pits, he's pretty much always smiling, and a happy rider is a fast rider, as we're seeing so far.
Certainly is. Well, we'll see how it all unfolds this weekend, Keith. We're back in Portugal, as we've said, first time in Europe for 2022 to kickstart that leg of the season. What are you looking for? What are you hoping for? What will Portugal bring us?
Hopefully, it won't bring us any gales and the like, because sometimes it can be a bit drafty there, that's for sure. Track in good condition, I'm hoping for. Fantastic racetrack, uphill, down dale. I mean, so many good. Craig Jones Corner. It's a track that Craig Jones did a lot of development testing over there when the track was in its infancy. He was sponsored by Portimao. If you remember the late now great Craigie Jones, who died very, very early in his career at Brands Hatch. A massive loss to British motorbike racing. Jones had a lot to do with that. So I always have this track for me is one that's heartfelt. In fact, it's the only track that I've had very, very little to do with, apart from through Craig back in the day. But I think it's one of those racetracks. I think we're going to see the Yamaha back on it. I think for me, Quartararo is going to be my prediction for a win. Got that one in as well. So I've got Aleix in third, and I've got Quartararo win. Catch up, boys. And I think that it's a racetrack that suits to a great extent the Yamaha again. It's a real rider's track as well. Just hope the conditions stay good. That's my only worry. It can be changeable there sometimes.
We've already been there 3 times, haven't we? It's gone from being a brand new track that we were all really excited to see MotoGP at in 2020, and now already this will be the 4th visit, won't it? So it's a familiar track. It's becoming, but as Keith says, really popular. That whole roller coaster sort of layout, isn't it? And I think there's been 3 different winners, haven't there, so far? I don't think we've had a repeat winner in these 3 races to date. So. Yeah, I mean, that first year when Oliveira, the local star on the Tectoir KTM, we talked about Tectoir earlier. I mean, they couldn't have had a better weekend. It was almost like a Marc Marquez Cota weekend of years past that Oliveira had there. But then came back at the start of 21, and I think the front tyre allocation had changed, and it was all completely different again. And Quartararo won. So you can see where Keith's predictions are coming in. So yeah, Quartararo is fast around there. Bagnaia won the last time in November. Really, really exciting track to watch at. And again, everybody, we keep hearing, wait for the start of the European season and everything else. Well, now it's arriving. So, there's some guys that we haven't seen on the podium yet. Mir, Bagnaia, Morbidelli, we were talking about. Marquez, obviously, we know his problems. But so there's a lot of guys arriving here with, I don't know whether you'd say not panic button, certainly for some of them, but you'd be pretty concerned because usually the championship, I think if you look at the statistics, gets wrapped up before the guy leading by the halfway stage, more often than not, is the guy that goes on to win. And so now it's a crucial time. You can't, where's Bagnaia? 38 points behind. I mean, that's a lot of points to make up. I mean, okay, Mark is also a long way behind, but we know what he can do when he gets on his stride. So I think there's a lot riding on these next few races, this start of the European season.
15 races, Pete. Long way yet. 15 races. We've only had 4.
I know, Keith, but I remember we looked back at because the 2020 season was really short, wasn't it? It was only 14 rounds. So I remember we went, right, well, what would happen if we only had 14 rounds for the other seasons before that? And it turned out that I think there'd been 2 exceptions where there'd been a change of title lead after about round 12. And that was 2015 and 2017. And that was it. The guy leading at round 12 had won the title all of the other seasons of MotoGP. Not to say it's going to happen, we know everything changes, but as I say, it just shows what that winning confidence can do. That confidence of having a good start to the season that Keith mentioned. If you're a Bastianini, you've won 2 out of the opening 4 races. That can transform your season just by having that good start. And I think that's what you see in terms of the World Championship quite often. So I think these guys, it's a long way to go, but I don't know. History sort of suggests that it's harder to catch someone when they've got that really good head start, that winning start to the year.
Well, not long to go until we find out what exactly happens this weekend. Now, before we get predictions in, I just want sort of a one-liner from you both on your biggest surprises so far from these opening 4 rounds. Keith?
Oh, Bastianini. Bastianini's absolutely nailed it. I mean, sorry, Pete, I stole that straight out your mouth, didn't I?
You did.
Sorry.
You could have that as well, Pete, if you want. If it's so big, it has to be Bastianini too.
Bastianini and Aleix winning on the Aprilia. Those would be the 2 for me, yeah.
All right, then. Well, now I think, Keith, do you want to just tell us your order for your podium? Because you pretty much already got the whole prediction in already. So, your 1, 2, 3, please.
Quartararo, Bastianini, and I was going to go Aleix or Mir, but I'm going to go Aleix.
Okay, Aleix. Yeah, that's a strong podium. Be a good podium as well. Pete, who's left?
Yeah. Well, I'll put Bastianini on top then. So I think he's, that bike won in the hands of Bagnaia back in November. So I think, especially if tyre wear comes into play, which it might do, we saw how good he was at that in Kota. So Bastianini first. Mir's been good at this track previously as well. I'll go for him second, and I'll keep faith with Bagnaia to get this podium that is rather overdue now, I think. So I'll put him third.
Okay, and I'm just going. I'm seeing a double Suzuki. I'm 1-2. Suzuki 1-2.
Wow.
Rins and Mir 1 and 2. Bastianini third. I think this is the weekend they come to the forefront. Got to do something to get a point on the board.
None of us have picked Marc Marquez, isn't it? That shows. This was the track where he made his comeback a year ago, wasn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what he can do this time around. But still, it just shows how much things have changed.
Yeah, of course
none of us picked Marc for a podium.
He hadn't ridden this track when he came back last year. I think that it was his first time here as well, wasn't it, last year? So it's not a bad shout, but I just don't think that they're there or thereabouts at the moment, and maybe a little bit of breath.
I think with that front end, isn't it, with all those corners,
and it might do him good not to bang his head again.
I'd say so. Well then. Not long to wait, as I've already said about 5 times, because I'm very excited. So that just about brings us to the end, though. Make sure, though, you're tuned in across the crash.net website for all the latest news and analysis across the rest of this week. And then we'll be back with you next week, straight after the race. Get your questions in, leave them in the comments section, or tweet, Instagram, or Facebook us. Just search Crash MotoGP. Leave us a review as well, if you can, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And we shall see you right back here next week to discuss all things Portugal. From myself, Harry Benjamin, from Keith Huewen, and from Pete McLaren. Bye-bye.